In the last year and a half, we've really gotten back to our roots, what we're really good at, what we really focus on. We've solidified our territory system. We've hired a lot of people. I think just in the last year and a half, we're probably somewhere in the ballpark of almost 10 new hires. We're probably going to hire another 4 to 5 people the rest of this year. We're not trying to be a 100-person firm. We're trying to be a firm that has adequate and full coverage in all of the territories across Brooklyn, so we can serve all of the property owners in every neighborhood and every asset class in Brooklyn. Now, when we're pitching business and somebody says, well, you're just this small firm in Brooklyn, I said, well, yeah, we may be smaller than the firms that we're pitching against, but we're capable and we're mighty. Deals are actually happening. So the market is not dead. The market is, by all intents and purposes, very healthy, but there are a ton of headwinds.
Okay, Dan Marks, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate your time.
Mitchell, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you started your career in Colorado back in, was it 2009?
I started my real estate career in Colorado, yes. Actually back in 2005, really.
Okay.
But I'm originally from Glenview, Illinois, which is a northern suburb of Chicago. But yeah, when I was out in Colorado, when I first got there, I went to get my real estate license thinking, I didn't really know what commercial real estate was. I thought, you get a real estate license and you help people buy and sell houses, and the commercial world just didn't exist.
You didn't have any family in the business or anything like that? No.
Not at all. My dad was a career salesperson. My mom's a teacher by trade and raised me and my siblings as we were growing up. So very little family in the business. However, one of my cousin's husbands was in the sort of like fix and flip game.
Okay. Started
on a sort of smaller scale, grew to a much larger scale in Chicago. And while I was in between sales jobs, because I was terrible at sales right out of school, I was like, hey, you're making a lot of money. You're doing cool things. Like, can I do what you're doing in Chicago? And he's like, you can try to help me find buildings. So that was kind of my first time ever.
Okay. So that piqued your interest in seeing the opportunity that was available.
Yeah, I was outside. I wasn't stuck at a desk doing cold calling, like inside sales cold calling, which I was stuck doing for a couple of years. And so that sort of drew my interest in real estate, but it was like, if you don't find anything, you don't get paid. And I didn't have any money, so you can't live for very long, even at your parents' house without any money, without, at that age. So that was really, and then I went into sort of advertising sales in Chicago and then moved out to Colorado. And at my real estate class, I actually stood up in front of the class and I was like, I'm new here. I really don't know anybody. I have no contacts. If anyone has any work at all, like anything, I'll take it. I have corporate sales experience. If you know anyone in the construction job, I'm capable. I can shuffle things if I need to. I've never done construction, but like I just need work.
Yeah.
And fortunately, there was a woman in this class who said, a friend of mine owns some real estate in Boulder. I'd love to introduce you. And his name was Nader Gadimi. He owned a bunch of properties in Boulder and around the Front Range. And he offered me a job, like an hourly job. He's like, yeah, we'll see if we can make it work. And that's how I got plugged into that job. And it was really mostly property management, leasing a vacant space. But over the years, we grew it into a boutique brokerage where we were doing residential, some commercial, and did that for 7 years while I was getting my MBA at University of Colorado. It didn't take me 7 years to get my MBA, just a couple of years, but yeah.
So it sounds like you're getting your 10,000 hours in, learning the ropes and really understanding the nuts and bolts of the brokerage business. There's a lot of successful people in this business that have come from the property management side and then ultimately the sales and brokerage as well. But it really sounds like you learned the basics of the business.
Yeah, I think so. I think even though I wasn't in real estate right out of school, having the training at my first 2 sort of more corporate level jobs for inside sales taught me a lot about cold calling and rejection and scripts and why people listen to you and why they don't, and dealing with rejection. And I hated every second of those couple of years. But in hindsight, I grew so much and I learned so much about like what it took psychologically to deal with all of the rejection that comes with cold calling and sales.
If you've been wondering what types of deals we've been working on,
we've made it easy for you. Just click on the link, show notes below.
We're talking real deals and real opportunities.
Whether you're an investor or owner or just curious to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Just click the link below and it'll bring you right to all of our available inventory.
If you don't mind, talk about some of the early challenges, because we all faced them, right? We were just talking about them before we came to start. For any young broker, getting started, them challenges, overcoming them is a real psychological challenge, as you mentioned. So, like, how did you get through that? You must have a lot of grit.
Look, I still deal deal with these psychological challenges. I don't think they necessarily go away. I think you just learn how to manage them better.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And there's always challenges. I think people look at me now and like, oh, you're CEO of TerraCRG, like you've made it, and like, Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm proud of where I am, but look, there are challenges that are thrown at me every single day. We still have a steep hill to climb at the company, but yeah, early on, I mean, the challenges are you don't really have any money and you're fighting for every last dollar in commission. At least even when I was getting paid a small salary plus bonuses at these other sales jobs.
You didn't have your family nearby because they were back in Chicago, right? So you didn't have them to leave?
Well, in Colorado, so I was sort of hired as a property manager, so I had a small base, and then I was sort of bonus based on activity, if we could help lease more spaces or renew more tenants. And so it was steady. It was sort of a steady, sort of easygoing. Boulder's a great town. If you get there by 9 o'clock in the morning and you leave by 5 o'clock, like you're putting in sort of maximum hours. Most people, it's sort of a different vibe, a different culture. Go for a hike, go for a run on the creek, like great like outdoor life, culture, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there it was just kind of like, okay, do I want to be here? Do I want to have my career here? I wasn't from there. I didn't have any family there. Most of my close friends were either in Chicago, where I'm from, or New York. And so I was visiting New York a lot. I was going to Chicago a lot. And that's when I was decided, you know what? I don't really want to keep changing careers at this point. This will be like my 4th or 5th job, but I really want to go work in a bigger city. I want more challenges. It's not supposed to be sort of on cruise control when you're like 30, 31, 32. Yeah. It's supposed to be challenging. You're supposed to work harder and have these. And so, so I went from like sort of like easy mode to like the hardest mode you could ask for, like New York City commercial real estate.
It's good to challenge you, stuff like that. So you got prepared for the Big Apple. You jumped over to the Big, I was about to say jump over the pond, that's what I did. So you jumped into the Big Apple. How did you end up Brooklyn? How did you get connected with Terra? And talk about some of the early years at Terra and what that was like.
Yeah, sure. So when I was getting my degree at CU, a gentleman named Peter Savoy came in and spoke to our real estate class. And he was a former top broker for Cushman Wakefield nationally. And then he went to the ownership side and was helping acquisitions for a larger firm and leading acquisitions. So I thought, that's an interesting career path. I've been doing some brokerage. I'm getting my MBA. I don't want to be a broker anymore. I kind of want to do what you're doing. So I scheduled a meeting with him in Denver. I went down there. He was nice enough to take the meeting. And he said, look, I don't really know you. You seem like a decent guy. Get a pen and paper out. I'm going to give you some names, phone numbers, email addresses of people I know in Chicago and New York. Why don't you reach out to these people, get a sense as to what's out there, and I won't vouch for you, but you can use my name. And that's really all I need. Every single person that I reached out to, and in hindsight, these were some pretty heavy hitters, especially in the New York market.
Investment sales mostly, or
all on the investment side, not sales, not brokers. None of them were brokers.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be an analyst, then climb the ladder that way. And he was like, go ahead. So every single person that I reached out to when I used his name said, sure, I'll give you 15, 20 minutes. So I flew out to New York a couple times. I met with all of these people. This was like 2010. So
it's an interesting time.
Yeah, so everybody who got fired from their analyst jobs in 2008 and 2009 all went back to grad school. And they were all coming back into the market in 2010, 2011 as the market was starting to pick up again, applying for the same jobs they had for less money, with an MBA, and all of these people were coming from Wharton and Kellogg and Stanford, and I was coming from CU Boulder. And CU Boulder has an awesome business school. It just doesn't play that well in New York. It plays really well like in Denver or the West Coast. And so I'd be meeting with these guys, and they'd be like, yeah, we're never going to hire you. No matter who, like, we've got people that had this job before, went and got their high level MBAs. Now they're coming back. And there's not going to be a place for you in this market. So I was pretty defeated actually at the time. And a friend of mine, Ryan, said, let me go on LinkedIn. I'm just going to type in New York real estate and see if I have any connections. So he like sent me like a printout. And I just went through and researched all the companies. One of them was TerraCRG. The guy actually didn't even work there anymore. He just happened to be connected with him. So I looked them up online. They were hiring for vice president of industrial sales. I was like, that sounds cool. I do a lot of industrial property management and leasing in Boulder. I reached out. Melissa Warren called me right away and said, let's talk. We had a great chat. I flew out to New York maybe a week or two later. I interviewed with her. I interviewed with Ofer. And I was like, gosh, I love this only Brooklyn concept. Because coming from another market, coming from London, coming from Boulder, New York's intimidating.
Yeah.
It's really big.
You got to focus on something. Otherwise, you're drowning in the opportunity. I always say that all the time.
Totally. And they were like, we're only Brooklyn. And I thought, well, Brooklyn's not that big. I mean, what a hugely naive thing.
It still blows my mind today how big not geographically, but just the dollar volume, the size of the market, which we'll come on to. But
yeah, I mean, 2.6 million people, 70 square miles. I mean, to go from Coney Island to Greenpoint takes half a day. I mean, it's a huge market. And I didn't really know that, but at least it wasn't come here and be a broker in all of New York City. It was at least somewhat narrowly focused, and I was drawn to that. And Ofer just has this way about him where I was like, I believe in this guy. Like, I believe...
He's very charismatic.
Ooh, like, he is, but he's very blunt. He's very direct. He's very Israeli, which he's very proud of, and he should be.
Yeah.
You know, he I don't know, I just trusted him. And I trusted Melissa, and I loved that team, and I loved this brand that they were building, and they appeared much larger than they were. They were not very big. They were operating out of in the back of a garage. We're across the street from where Barclays Center is now. But online, they looked like they were stacked up against the big dogs. And so I kind of was drawn to that.
Okay.
But I was not excited about 100% commission. I was not excited about losing any benefits or anything like that. That was a huge risk for me.
You don't need an MBA, or all you need is a 75-hour person sales license to get in the brokerage business.
And I'm thinking to myself, why did I just spend all that time and money getting my MBA?
I know. I'm sure a lot of other people have been there, but still made a successful career in brokerage, you know?
Yeah, and I think commercial brokerage, and I think some of our more institutional level clients appreciate the fact when they read my bio or they're talking to their investment committee or their team. I think that it probably does help. I know when I was applying to be on some nonprofit boards, I think that was appreciated. But and also I learned a lot, and I made a lot of great friends and a lot of great connections. I don't regret it for a second. You certainly don't need an MBA to become a successful real estate broker. But I still use a lot of the stuff that I learned, you know, especially now that I'm managing the company. I can rely on a lot of that stuff now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So fast forward 10 years or so later, now you're the CEO, recently promoted last year. Congrats.
Thank you.
How's it going today at Terra? How's the company doing? How's it grown? Where do you see it going forward?
Yeah, it's going good. You know, I mean, look, we're brokers, so I'm never going to tell you it's going bad.
Yeah. That's a softball question for a broker.
Look, you've been in this market for a long time also. You've experienced sort of the ebbs and the flows. Transaction volume, I think, across all brokerages has slowed down over the last couple of years, right? And since I took over about almost 2 years ago, transaction volume has been relatively steady. It's not dead, it's not pandemic times, but it's not booming like it was in 12, 13, 14, 15, where you're selling the same property 2-3 times for the same, you know, for double the price, right? So I'm really proud of TerraCRG as a company, sort of where we've come over the last 17 plus years. I've been there almost 15. Ofer's vision, his vision on, like, look, we're going to take this institutional level approach that he learned from working at Massey Knakkel with Bob and Paul for a couple of years, and taking this more organized institutional approach to Brooklyn was very bold. Like, nobody was really doing that. It wasn't that organized. So
because it's mostly mom and pop owners.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody the mom and pops weren't used to people showing up in a suit and tie at a pitch back in those days, right? Now it's becoming a little bit more normal. The values have gotten so high that brokers have really woken up to that market, and companies have. But
believe it or not, I've actually seen the Bronx market over the past 6-7 years or so. I would say that you're seeing more competition for brokers. You see more brokers being in that market, which tells you there's opportunity, right? They're trying to trace transactions. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I don't know much about Bronx real estate, admittedly. I mean, we really are horse blinders on, talking really on the Brooklyn market. But from what I sense, from what I read in the papers and following you online, it feels like Brooklyn was 15 years ago, where it's going to have this renaissance, this emergence. You know, there's a lot of value that people are seeing there from a development standpoint. But to maybe answer your question, in the last year and a half, we've really gotten back to our roots, what we're really good at, what we really focus on. We've solidified our territory system. We've hired a lot of people. I think just in the last year and a half, we're probably somewhere in the ballpark of almost 10 new hires. We're probably going to hire another 4 to 5 people the rest of this year. We're not trying to be a 100-person firm. We're trying to be a firm that has adequate and full coverage in all of the territories across Brooklyn, so we can serve all of the property owners in every neighborhood and every asset class in Brooklyn, which we do a pretty good job of now, and we'll do a really good job of in select areas, but we want to have that coverage everywhere. So we'll probably be as big as, I don't know, 35, maybe 40 people and stabilize somewhere around there. Brokers come and go, but somewhere in that ballpark.
Thanks for listening to the Broker Brunch. We've now brought you a ton of episodes and we hope we're providing a lot of value. If you have any ideas of people you'd like to see on future episodes, please drop it in the comments so we can make it happen.
So a lot of these brokers coming into the business are in their 20s, they're trying to get going in life. How do you attract and retain talent in a commission business? It can be like, how do you motivate them? I always say that you have to be self-motivated, but at the same time, if you have a motivation from your boss and some guidance and inspire them, then it can help as well.
Yeah, we are brutally honest with people in the interview process. In the interview process, you can kind of tell early on. You ask them a few questions, get a sense of are they okay people? They seem motivated. Do they can they speak? Like basic things, okay. Now, do they have a financial plan? Because for us, we're very honest. Listen, we guarantee you'll make almost $0, probably $0 in your first 12 months. You might even make $0 in your first 24 months. So if you don't have a 2-year financial plan, either here or any other brokerage that offers you 100% commission will not, it won't work. You might be the most talented broker in the world, but if you don't have a good financial plan, you're in trouble. So for a lot of the younger folks, they're getting support from their parents, right? So instead of them paying for a 2-year graduate degree somewhere, sponsor me for the first 2 years. And I say to them, if you do everything we ask you to do, you'll start making money within that time period. And you can start paying them back, or you can start getting out on your own, right? So
what are the things you ask them to do?
A lot. So we give them the territory to focus on. They have to go through our training program before they get on the phone with anybody. So we need to make sure that they've walked their territory, they've canvassed their territory, they know everything. They have to present to me and the partners that they actually know what they're talking about. They have to show some level of competency before we get them on the phone with anybody.
I think it's great that you do that because the business has too low barriers to entry, right? So it needs to have some sort of level of competence before you put them in front of a client. Otherwise, it's just not going to represent the company very well.
Yeah. We ask them to adhere by a certain type of dress code. We ask them to come to the office every day. We ask them to join Monday morning team meetings. We ask them to join all company outings. We ask them to track all of their activity in our CRM. These are all things that we ask them to do because it helps us coach them. And they have to be really coachable because I meet with every agent once a month and our sales manager meets with them every week to see, okay, how's the week going so far? What challenges are you facing? And we also tell them, early on, you don't really have to do that much except make a lot of phone calls and get us in the room. Because we have enough senior brokers there now where somebody's always going to be available to go with you to meet with that owner to talk about this is who we are and this is how we operate and this is why we're competent and this is what's going on in the market. And I think sometimes our approach drives the young guys crazy because they just want the listing and they want to get hired and they want to sell something. Yeah. But we've been doing this long enough to realize, and I even say in our first meeting with clients, I'm not going to ask you to sell your building. I'm not even here to try to convince you it's the right time to sell your building. We're here just to give you as much information as we can so you can make the most informed decision if you ever get to that point where you have to make a decision. And that approach has served us really well in the long run. I think it's hard for younger brokers to appreciate that because that's really relationship building and that's how you build a long career. But it's really not like, I have a buyer who wants to buy your building. Would you take an offer for this?
I say this all the time to my partner Brian. It's like delayed gratification. I'm really a big believer in that. And I think that young people maybe struggle with that, but it's the mentality you have to have. So you have to be coachable. You have to be likable. You have to have hard work. You have to have grit. You have to have some sort of communication skills.
Yeah, and
are there any other skills that come to mind for a young guy?
Yeah, you have to be able to work in this team environment. So while we don't share commissions across the teams, we do share, our CRM is open. If somebody wants to know all the calls I've made this week and all the notes that I've made, they can go see it. We're not hiding anything. If somebody has a potentially new client, they don't have to go take it in a conference room so nobody can hear what they're talking about. They don't have to go outside because they're worried that somebody next to them is going to call that person and try to build that relationship instead. So you have to be willing to understand that within our culture, what goes around comes around. If you're making a lot of calls and you're creating a lot of opportunities outside of your zone, if you're calling industrial property owners because that's your territory in Greenpoint, and somebody says, I've got a multifamily property in Park Slope I'm thinking of selling, you should be super excited because now we can really help that client because we have an expert in Park Slope that's going to be able to handle that for them and give them the best information and execute and get that deal done while you continue to cultivate your industrial market. So we have this really nice internal referral system that it rewards people for creating those opportunities, rooting for people, and also having this bigger picture that like, if somebody is successful at TerraCRG, that means we're getting in the press. That means we're promoting our brand more. That means it's more likely that somebody out there is going to hear about us. So as all those ships rise, you're in that water with us. You'll come up with us, you know? So having that sort of appreciation for the team, and we're trying to build something here, and we're trying to capture market share, and there's a lot of competition out there. We don't need to be competing internally here. So people who can appreciate that, but also people who don't aspire necessarily to be like the greatest broker in the United States. They appreciate that if they come in and they are the best broker in their asset class in their territory, and they can get to a 10, 20, 30% market share, they will make more money than they ever thought they could make.
Yeah, they live a great life.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they have to come in working hard. Touching on your institutional approach, I noticed last year, I think you did a $120 million deal on Kingsland Avenue. So you are demonstrating that you can have the ability to execute that, which I love to see a small boutique, not necessarily small, but boutique firm punching above their weight, you know? So like, do you mind saying a bit of a deal story there? How did that deal come about? Like, why did Terra win the business rather than the CBRE or Jones Lang? So I'm curious to hear that story. And sorry, environmental challenges as well, because I'm so long with light industrial projects and I'm always coming with challenges with environmental.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me about it. It's my favorite deal to talk about, and I can, to the audience, we didn't talk about, you know, landing any questions beforehand. You know, this is a good one. It's probably the biggest feather in our cap as a firm in the 18 years that we've been in business, for a couple of reasons, and we're proud of every transaction that we've done, large or small. But like you said, the fact that ExxonMobil, who is like one of the top 10 largest companies in the entire world, like you think of like the big real estate companies out of New York, they're like, Exxon is hundreds of times larger than they are, right? So when they were thinking of selling their last remaining asset in New York City, they were starting to interview firms. And typically they go with, like you said, JLL, CBRE, and they sort of just go back and forth between, okay, we're doing a disposition in Texas, we're going to use this company, we're going to do a disposition here, we're going to use this company.
They usually have mandates, right, particularly on the leasing side, where they have a national contract.
Yeah, I mean, they've got national agreements, so it's very easy to plug and play. Okay, this team, we handle this one in New York, this team handle this one in Boston, this team handle this one in New Jersey, and they sort of just go back and forth, which makes sense. But lucky for us, there was a consultant that worked with them who said, if you're really thinking of selling in this area, you should really talk to the folks at TerraCRG. They worked on the deal just to the north of this project. They sold the property to the south.
It always helps if you sell properties around it, you know.
Totally. And so thankfully, because of this consultant, we got our foot in the door just to have a pitch. We didn't think in a million years we would win the business, just because we know we're capable. We know we can do a good job, but typically very large institutions tend to work with other large institutions.
Yeah.
Nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM, right? That's the famous saying. So we had a unbelievably good pitch. I mean, we knew everything. We've sold 20 properties along Superfund sites between Gowanus Canal and Newtown Creek. We know the environmental challenges. We know the political landscape. We know the buyers in this market. We know how to run an institutional level process. It doesn't need to be a very public process. We touched on all the things that were important to them. And most importantly, we said to our main client, our main contact at Exxon, we're going to make your job really easy. We're going to do everything. We're going to give you all the reporting. We're going to have weekly calls. We're going to,
because they've got someone else to report to internally.
Yeah, and me and Ofer and Dan Libor, the three partners and owners of the company, are going to lead this effort and take on full responsibility. You know, so we're not coming in to pitch the business and then going to hand this to somebody else. This is going to be a big deal for us. So it was an extremely complicated deal, even more complicated, I think, than we thought it was going to be. But
I'm sure.
But they always are. The environmental challenges were great, even though ExxonMobil had to retain a certain amount of responsibility just because of the broader cleanup that they're doing in that area, the decades-long cleanup.
When you went to the market, was there environmental already done, like reports, or did the buyer do that?
We had so much.
Okay, you had a big deal room.
Yeah, I mean they've been doing environmental cleanup in this part of Greenpoint for decades, and there's a decades-long plan still in place to continue remediation. And this property had a remediation facility on it that needed to be dealt with and moved. And I'm telling you, we could write a very boring long book about this deal.
I'm getting very granular, but it's interesting at the same time.
Yeah, and Ultimately, we ran an unbelievable process. We had 52 Zoom meetings or in-person meetings pitching the opportunity. All of those people signed CAs. All of those people got access to the data room. We ended up getting 18 written offers. We went through 3 rounds of bidding. We sent out 3 contracts, negotiated 2 of them, and ultimately Prologis ended up closing on it last year for $120 million. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a great accomplishment for us. And now when we're pitching business and somebody says, well, you're just this small firm in Brooklyn. I said, well, yeah, we may be smaller than the firms that we're pitching against, but we're capable and we're mighty. And I do a training class with our team every once in a while. I don't know if you remember, if you follow college basketball, but a few years ago, there was this team out of Baltimore, UMBC, that beat the number 1 overall ranked team in the NCAA tournament. It was Virginia at the time. And never in the history of the college basketball tournament, NCAA tournament, has a 16 seed beat a number 1 seed, ever. Like, it was like 0 and hundreds and hundreds and hundred chances. But they did, and they beat them, and it was amazing. And they had really crappy facilities and really small gym.
I love
it. Small endowment and enrollment, but they beat the Goliath because they believed it and they played the game, and that's why you play the game. And so I give this example to our team because you have to have that belief. You have to believe that. And just because you're a bigger firm doesn't mean you're more capable of selling an asset. And I actually think there's a disadvantage. All of the marketing dollars that we earn get pumped right back into Brooklyn, promoting our properties and stuff like that.
Also, the bigger firms, there's always like conflicts internally, and they can get messy.
Exactly. So for us, I think it allowed people to say, okay, well, if ExxonMobil recognizes the value of this only Brooklyn proposition and what these guys are doing here, we should really consider that as well. And so it helped us overcome that objection, I think, that some of our competitors might use against us and say, well, they're only Brooklyn. Yeah, we say, yeah, we're only Brooklyn, and that's actually the advantage.
Without a doubt, that helps you on the business, obviously. And that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing I just forgot to ask, actually, going back to the calling, with younger brokers. So how many calls, I know we're getting granular, but just for the benefit of our audience, how many calls are they expected to make a week?
As many as humanly possible.
Till they pass out on the floor?
We usually just tape a headset to their head and we lock it.
I just want to hear the younger guys hear what you have to do to make it in this business.
It's it's a little bit different for everybody, but what I always say is, a lot of the younger folks don't have the obligations that the older folks have. So it's harder to come into this business with a family and kids.
Yeah, agreed.
And those obligations and that sort of stuff. So if you're coming in out of school and you don't have those responsibilities, this sort of myth of this perfect work-life balance, you got to work a lot early on. There's not as much balance. There's really very little balance, I think, at that point. So I say, get in there early, work late, work on the weekends, canvas your property, canvas your areas and that stuff. But as far as calls go, we provide a pretty good database, but there's no such thing as a perfect database. So once that database is good, you should be at least making 100+ dials a week. At least connect, talk, meaningful connections. You have to do a lot more dials to get to that many connections. But if you look at some of these alpha dogs online, they're I do 500 dials a day, and it's okay, that's
there is
fine.
a bit of quality involved as well.
Yeah, quality's a big.
You'll
part
do a
of
bit
it.
of research in the owners before.
And also our approach is very advisory, right? So if you get somebody on the phone, we're not trying to have a long conversation and learn their life story on that, but we are trying to talk to them about what we're seeing in the market, a comp. Introduce ourselves. This isn't, I have a buyer, would you sell for twice what your property's worth?
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next one. So you're right, there is a little bit of a balance. But we ask them to track every single call in the CRM, and then we keep a scorecard. We keep calls.
It's very measurable, right, at the start.
It's very measurable. So calls, leads, pitches, proposals out or listing agreements out, listing agreements signed. So we track those things, and we track them weekly. And then every month we sit down and I say, okay, how come you weren't able to make more calls this month? What happened? Oh, you got sick. You were on vacation. Okay, so we need to account for that. If that's going to happen next month, let's reduce your target goals because I want you to hit your goals. Or you had a lot of calls, but you didn't have a lot of leads. let's work on your script. Or you had a lot of leads, but not a lot of pitches. You need to qualify those leads better.
You usually can like back into the right answer.
We can look in the data and actually figure out where they need training and where they need help. Because if you're not measuring it, you're literally in the dark.
Well, yeah, exactly. Particularly in the commission business, when you're not paid at the end of every week, right? You need something to measure, right? And I'm still very focused and disciplined on just hitting I have 50 connects a week, but every week.
Yes.
And if I know if I'm off for 1 week, then I have to catch up the next week. And I just feel like you have to be really disciplined with that.
You do. And it's hard for people to do it. And it's hard to do it when you're not getting paid. Like you said, we're telling people what to do and we're not paying them.
Yeah.
And we're not giving them benefits. We give them a nice office. We give them what I think is a really great culture. I think we give them great coaching, great training. But it's hard to appreciate that when you're 10 months in and you haven't made any money. And I keep telling you, you can't wear gym shoes to the office. You need to dress better when you go on meetings. You can't go to a meeting like that. You can't. You don't have your numbers ready for a pitch today. We're not going. You have to reschedule. And they look at me like, you're not paying me, but you're right. But this is how we run. This is how we run. I really, truly do, because I've been there and I know what that grind feels like, and I know what it's like walking home from work 4 or 5 months in, questioning like, God, did I just make the stupidest mistake of my life? Should I have just stayed in Boulder or gone to Chicago where I know more people?
We've been there. I've had the same experience.
Oh my gosh, I literally would be walking down Pacific Street to go sleep on my friend's couch on Smith Street for the first couple months and thinking to myself, what am I doing? I'm 32 years old. I've worked at all these other companies. Like, all my other friends seem to have their shit together. Like, what am I doing? And really doubting my choice.
Did you have like a partner, or had you met your wife by that point?
No.
Were you single? Okay.
No, I was single. And so I wasn't risking really anyone else's livelihoods and lifestyle than mine. But I was just like, I should have been further at this point. I should have been more established. Right. I should have, I don't know. I should have stuck with my first job longer. Like you start doubting yourself and asking all these questions. Like, how did I end up here? Yeah. And then believing.
Thank you for listening to the Broker Brunch. If you enjoyed the show, please hit subscribe so we can reach more people.
I was fortunate at the time. I had my wife, and she really helped me through that period. And I say this, well, obviously you don't need to have a partner to get through it, but I feel like it can help to have someone to lean on. If it was a family or friends or whoever it could be.
I think it's huge. And some of the people that we hire that are not right out of college, they're making a career change. We haven't had a lot of luck welcoming brokers that have worked in the New York City market onto our team because we sort of put them in this territory.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
And they're used to doing a deal here and there and there, and if they originate a deal, they're going to work on that deal, and they're not going to refer it. So we always have a hard time with that. But there's folks like me who are making kind of a career change or coming from another market who don't know anybody in New York, don't have any sort of habits formed in New York as far as brokerage goes. And they come to us, and oftentimes they're a little bit older. They have a partner. Their partner works. And it gives them a financial plan, so that as a household they can figure out how they're going to make it work, but also have somebody there at the end of the day who believes in you, saying, "We're going to make this work. We're going to figure out a way to make that happen." Yeah, and that's huge. I didn't have that.
You can also sort of mold them into how you think it's going to make them successful. Whereas if someone's already done one way, it's difficult to change their mentality, believing in the TerraCRG system, for example.
It's very.
And I came from that same book, so I believe in it, but I started in it. Yeah. So if someone had a different style, when people do have different styles, then it's hard to come into that world. Yeah, and even if you have, we've got a guy that just started with us. He used to do a lot of brokerage in the Boston market. Great, he knows he has his own technique, he has his own style. That's okay, but he wasn't working sort of in the New York market where he had a client that wanted to buy a deal in Queens, and he had another guy in Manhattan, and he had somebody else in Brooklyn, and somebody on Staten Island, and he would just run around the market. Yeah. And then that client calls, and we're like, no, we need market share here. We hired you, we gave you this sort of franchise in this territory. You can't keep running around distracted. I've seen it.
That.
It's really bad.
It happens all the time.
People can't see it. They can't see.
And we tell them that before they come.
Yeah.
And we had a guy that started with us not too long ago. Great broker, extremely talented. Brought some great ideas to the company, but when the first real example presented itself, it didn't work the way he wanted it to work, and the way we have it work. And we had to have a really honest conversation and just say, "I'm telling you, we're going to hold you back." and I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I don't want this tension to exist here. And
Yeah.
he was like, you know what, you're probably right. And now he went out on his own. He's doing his own thing, and he's going to do great things.
Yeah.
And it's a huge market. And the other thing that people don't talk about enough is like, we are in theory competitors, but we don't compete, and we probably never will. And even if you were in Brooklyn, we probably wouldn't really compete much because 90% of the transaction go unbrokered.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, brokers smell blood in the water, and everyone starts to pitch the same person. And you try to win that business, and that does happen, and there's competition there. But the biggest competitor that you're dealing with every day is you versus the phone versus you getting out there and connecting with as many people as you can.
Well said. Well
And
said.
that is
I like that.
100% true.
Yeah.
And it's not as sexy to talk about because it's more fun to put a face on a dartboard and beat that person than this sort of abstract idea of most deals aren't brokered.
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So moving on to the state of the Brooklyn market right now. So it's a bit of a vague question, but like, how is the market, if you want to break it down by asset type? So for example, the multifamily market, how is that doing in Brooklyn?
So we just released our half-year market report.
Okay.
So for anyone that's interested in data, we have all of our market reports going back to 2010. We release them quarterly. We used to do them biannually and annually.
Sorry to jump in. I also saw on your website you have geographical neighbor descriptions and like information, which I thought was really great.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that was something that we wanted to do when we redid our website a number of years ago. Was maybe there's an investor coming in that wants to better understand what's going on in any given market, and so it's a way for them to get
touch.
that. And the Brooklyn Chamber also has an unbelievable website that talks about that. Like if you're visiting Brooklyn and you just type in where you want to go, and it gives you all these ideas. But to answer your question, how's the Brooklyn market doing? So across the board, we are a little bit down in transaction volume. Typically, the market will do anywhere between 1,100 and 1,200 transactions a year based on our methodology.
It's a beast of a market.
Yeah, and the average market is somewhere around $6 billion. So again, going back to your we're a boutique firm, that's like going to like the biggest real estate firm commercial firm in Chicago and saying you're focusing on a boutique market.
Yeah.
It's a very
it's good to put things into perspective like that.
It's a very big market. And in 2010, it was a $1 billion market for the entire year.
Okay. Now it's consisting like $4 or $5 billion, $6 billion market?
Yeah, 6 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're just shy of $3 billion for this half of the year,
okay.
Which is still a lot of transactions happening. So this like idea that the market is dead is just not accurate. Deals are happening and deals are getting brokered, and we're constantly reminding our team, look, like deals are happening. Look at Traded, look at Pincus, look at Real Deal, look at Commercial Observer, look at Cranes. Deals are actually happening. So the market is not dead. The market is, by all intents and purposes, very healthy, but there are a ton of headwinds. The 2019 rent laws are really starting to show major implications. But with that said, people are starting to acquiesce to the realities that they don't seem to be going away anytime soon. And if you own a rent-stabilized building, you've seen your NOI shrink every single year. Cap rates are holding sticky. These properties are becoming worth less and less every year. So we're starting to see more properties like that trade. The free market ones are trading. So multifamily mixed use is actually doing pretty well across asset classes. The one asset class that has gone down significantly is industrial. From
down
this
in
time,
values, you mean?
No. I think values.
Oh, sorry, transactional volume. Sorry.
Yeah. Values have actually held up pretty well across the board in all asset classes, except for, I would say, very large development sites because of the 485X limitations on over 100 units and how that impacts the underwriting costs for using union prevailing wage for the construction. But everything else the values have held pretty steady. Average transaction volume is going to ebb and flow, but that's not value. That doesn't actually measure value. But industrial is always an asset class that ebbs and flows based on if people are willing to sell or not. And they don't typically sell because they're trying to time the market. They typically sell.
Well, it's typically like user driven, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you're running your business and you're concerned about tariffs and controlling costs, that you're probably not going to want to invest in a new piece of real estate. Interest rates are still relatively high, and most people just don't sell their industrial real estate. These are sort of long ownership sales cycles.
It seems like the industrial asset class is a lot more liquid than rent stabilized. Is that fair to say? Well, everything's a perception of value, I suppose, but I feel like I'd rather have an industrial building sale than a rent stabilized building.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, the buyer pool is definitely deeper. It all boils down to price. Like if it's a well-priced, stabilized building and an overpriced industrial building, I'd take a well-priced, stabilized building any day of the week.
Yeah,
you know
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And where are the opportunities? Like, if you're an investor with $2 million right now, what would you look to buy, and where?
There's always a couple like retail condos in prime areas, which I think is an interesting play. There's a lot of new construction, and a lot of those developers will sell those retail condos off separately, and they're not usually very high price points.
Why would they like to sell them and not keep them for cash flow just because they want to recycle the money?
Yeah, it's just not in a lot of their business model. So they'll build and they'll build and they'll keep the rental upstairs and they'll condo off the condo downstairs and they'll sell that separately. It's just different strategies, but I think that's an interesting play. These free market Class 2A, 2B tend to do really well. Rent growth continues to go up. We're in an unbelievably big housing shortage in New York City. So you've seen free market rent growth across the board, very strong. And they are still class protected properties. So, and then there's lots of neighborhoods, and at least in Brooklyn, you can find a good opportunity in just about every neighborhood. There's different characteristics of it. There's different demographics. There's different reasons why people are developing and buying. And every single neighborhood has people that are bullish on it.
And what about the city of yes? How's that impacted? Are you seeing like for example, the Bronx? Like, we're not necessarily seeing an increase in land value, although owners may think that, but it's not a reality because the affordable component just offsets the cost. I'm curious how the Brooklyn market.
Same. I was doing some underwriting last night with one of our younger brokers, and the UAP, or the city of yes development side of it, was 15% less valuable than if somebody just came in and didn't do the UAP. They just did the 45X, right? So from that standpoint, I don't think we're going to see a tremendous amount of building that way. What I've heard from developers is they appreciate more deductions that they can get from the building, more efficient building designs, less setbacks. The design of the buildings is better.
Less parking in some instances,
less parking, removed parking, which is good in some areas and not great in others, but
it's not really necessary, particularly if you're near a transit zone in New York City. You don't really need a car if you're near a subway, right? Particularly if you're in a dense area.
I agree. But I think City of Yes was great, and I think it showed the politicians are looking for creative ways to spur more activity and understood that rules that were made in the 60s don't make sense today. So I think psychologically that was a very good thing, and I think in the long run you will see an improved development market because of these changes, but it's not going to have a big immediate impact like a tax abatement like 45X has, because without it, there's no rental development, and with it, you can actually do it. With City of Yes, if it didn't happen, there'd still be development as long as you have tax incentives, major tax incentives there to encourage development. So the 1-2 punch, I felt like, okay, great, we did that in 2024. We're past the mayoral elections, like. We're 2025. They were right. You survived till 2025. This is it. The party's about to start. And then you wake up and it's like, what's all this talk of tariffs and why isn't the Fed reducing the interest rates and all these global conflicts? And it's like, wow, okay, it's not a light switch. It's going to take time. I still believe that we were in the early innings of a recovery. Real estate goes through cycles. We are due for an upcycle here.
Feels like it, right? It's been a battle for the last few years.
I mean, can you imagine? It's not going to happen overnight, but can you imagine if the rates dropped by 1 percentage point today?
Yeah.
It would be like putting gasoline on a fire.
Yeah.
Because there's always fire here in this market. There's always
buyers for every absolute price.
But that would just boom, like it would absolutely explode everything.
Yeah.
Because we have the incentives. And if they could go back and incentivize large development over 100 units without having to build 299 units next to each other or whatever it is, there are some tweaks that can be done. And then if they can go back to the 2019 rent laws, I mean, if all these things happened, I mean, it would be the greatest time in the history of New York City real estate.
Brokers are always hoping for it.
These incremental changes will also have big impacts too.
We're back. Another season of the Broker Brunch podcast. Summertime in New York. We've got a lot of exciting conversations coming up. We hope you enjoy listening.
Yeah.
Another topic I want to talk about was personal branding. So I feel like you have a really strong personal brand. I didn't know you before today. I think we met last week finally in person. But I feel like you have a really strong personal brand. Like, you just seem like a nice guy. I like you, and I've never met you before. So, do people tell you that? Like, is that something you think about? How, like, obviously we are ourselves, but being likable and a personal brand is very relevant in today.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's. I think when I hear personal brand, I think it's more like manufactured. You know, and I don't. I am who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and I find that I sleep better at night because I treat people with fairness, and I try to be kind to everybody, and I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. This is just who I am. You know, it's kind of how I was raised. Maybe it's the Midwesterner in me.
I'm sure it is.
Maybe it's I went to the Jesuit grade school or high school, Jesuit college. Like maybe it's the Jesuit upbringing. I don't know. It's just this is who I am. And some people will even say to me, I've had clients even say to me, like, I love you, like you're amazing. I just don't think
wow, that's amazing.
I just don't think you're aggressive enough.
Yeah.
And
it's like their own style, right?
And I said, no, look, I appreciate that, but I am hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Hyper. I played a lot of sports growing up. And when I'm in deal mode, I'm in deal mode. I hone in, I focus. Our clients' interests are critical. And like you said earlier, most of the folks we work for are mom and pops. And I think of my family, I think of my parents, like I'm helping somebody's parents sell the most valuable asset that they've ever owned. And you can't screw this up.
Yeah.
And you have to get every last dollar because it's the only asset they typically own. And you have to do a good job by them. And you have to push these buyers. And we really do. And our process does a lot of the work, because if you run a really good process, the market is so efficient, the market is so competitive. If you just get them in the ring together, you're going to get to where you want to go. But as far as like personal brand goes, again, I've talked about Ofer a few times here today, but he really pushed me out of my comfort zone.
It's great to have a mentor doing that.
For sure. And it's funny because I never really people always get a mentor.
Yeah.
For me, it was sort of an organic thing. I wasn't really seeking out a mentor, but Ofer, I think, saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And when Michael Stoller would call him and say, I want you to be on the show, and Ofer was like, I'm too busy, I don't want to, and he'd say, Dan, you have to do it. And I'm like, When like a reporter wanted to do a story about churches getting converted a long time ago, like a TV story, he's like, you're going to go do it. They're going to interview you outside this church that we're selling. I'm like, oh, I'm nervous.
Imposter syndrome. We've been there.
Oh my gosh. When he's like, I need you to moderate a panel at our Only Brooklyn conference, I was so I'm still nervous. And then now I'm running the conference. I'm sort of hosting the conference now. And I'm still very nervous about this stuff, but I also know it's really important to our company that there's a face.
Yeah, you're out there.
And that there's a name and there's a brand. And hopefully if people like me, they like our firm, and then I'll introduce them to the other great folks that are there. So it's important that we do things like this. But honestly, I give you guys, you and Brian, a ton of credit for having the discipline to stay with a podcast like this, because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of mental energy and capacity. It takes a lot of money. It just takes a lot. And to your credit, you've stuck with it. And I love your guys' podcast. I watch your podcast.
Thank
I think
you.
you guys do an
Appreciate
amazing
it.
job. And it's one other way that you can show your clients, like, I'm real.
Yeah.
I'm in this market. I have a connection here. I have a brand here. And it does matter. And we talk to our team all the time. Update your LinkedIn profile. Post a lot of stuff. Don't just repost. Add some commentary.
Some value you're putting out to the world, right?
Yeah. Create a professional Instagram account, because nobody wants to see you partying in the Hamptons on the weekend and talking about a sold announcement. Create a professional account. Keep your private one private. It's okay to have these two lives. You should, but we give them social media training often. And as we grow as a company, we'll probably hire people that are going to focus on that exclusively, do more video, because it's not just about, Bob always says it's not about who you know, it's
who knows you.
Yeah, who knows you and who's thinking of you at that time.
Yeah.
So if I can be in like 12 places at once because I'm on a podcast and I'm in a Commercial Observer article and I posted something on Instagram and I'm on the phone.
You're everywhere, yeah.
You can be in more places than just on the phone at that one moment. So it's really important now more than ever for brokers to take on their own image, and we encourage it. We want rock stars coming out of our firm. We want them building their own brand. I don't want this to be about me. I don't want this to be just about the company. I want this to be about them. And we had a broker have probably his most significant sale ever just close last week, and I told him, I said, this is your moment. We're gonna do everything we can as a firm to elevate you on social. But you need to go out there and tell people and bang your chest. And I want you to take so much credit for this. Give them your TerraCRG card so they see, we're working together.
Yeah.
But this is you. This is your moment. So go take advantage of it, because it's fleeting. Because tomorrow something else is going to be posted.
Yeah.
You got to go out there and let people know that you did this.
Yeah. But I appreciate everything you're doing. You're doing a great job. Keep going. Wishing you continued success, and thank you again for coming on.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time.
Take care.
Good stuff.